Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Here we are, VTP Stage 2 Online, Technical Tuesday Coaching Call 201 for the 21st of July 2026. I hope you're all well. I hope you've had a good start to the week. Hope you've enjoyed some of these moves in FX indices and commodities, okay, that we've seen based on everything that's going around the world at the moment, but more of that later. And if you want a bit more help and support, the Trader Accountability Group is running for Q3, helping you build discipline, accountability, and consistency in your trading journey. There's a bit.ly code there, there's a QR code there. You can ping me if you've got any questions or comments. When we take a little bit of a deeper look into sterling in particular, this is the COT report, okay, for British pound futures from last week. Okay, what are we seeing here? Okay, well, we're seeing the commercials, okay, sort of lightening up on their longs, and the non-commercials, okay, lightening up on their shorts. The kind of small fry are also basically kind of lighting up on their shorts. And what does that particularly look like? So non-commercials, all right, they are 51,000 long against 122,000 short. So they're still short, but look at that. They've trimmed 10,000 shorts whilst adding 6,000 longs. On the other side, the commercials, 181,000 long against 100,000 short. They've trimmed the short, but there was a bigger trim of their longs as well. Okay, so we're looking at that. There is still, if you look at that, okay, just those two major players, you're still looking at, we're on the kind of long side, although there has been trims to both side of that, and the non-reportable positions, the small fry, okay, they are still all right. They're still on the short side, okay, in the short bias. It's just it's basically it's loosening up, it's lightening up, all right. And so, as I said, I'll be interested to see what the numbers are for this Friday and then next Friday, okay, to see what, if any, big shifts we get this week based upon the new PM, the new chancellor, and the any kind of new policy. So that's what I'll be keeping an eye out on. When we look just at the latest STAM, what's it telling us? Well, what we have seen is there are basically Aussie, okay, and Kiwi, as we just saw there, have basically pumped their way up to the sort of to the highs, okay, with sterling in kind of third place now, right? So on that, so that is probably an announcement which we'll look at in a moment in terms of the just looking at the price action based upon what's going on in this week, but then also, as I said, Kiwi, Aussie. Rate hikes, okay, they're looking, okay, they've started, that's going to be happening, and that's where we've seen the kind of flow of capital into. Dollar, still remains strong. Canadian dollar has strengthened, all right, but that's pretty much off the back of the oil. And what we have seen is that yen, Swiss franc, and euro are kind of holding up the bottom of the pile there. And when we look at the STAM focus, all right, so you're looking at long pound yen, long Kiwi yen, long pound Swiss, long Kiwi Swiss, okay, which has been a little bit of a tease these last few weeks, okay, but we'll look at that a little bit more when we switch across to the live markets. Okay, before we start with sterling, I just thought we'd have a little look at the gilt yields, okay, here, because of what's going on in the UK and basically, the political shenanigans and what impact it's going to have. Remember, Mr. Burnham says, he didn't really care about the bond markets. He wasn't going to be in hock to them. Well, this is a little bit of a look at some of those yields, and in particular, this is the 10-year yield. This is a 4-hour chart. This is a 30-minute chart. Well, we can see we've gone from 4.7 to trading as high as 5.03 there. Okay, that is. We're above 5, all right? We are above 5, okay, on the 10-year yields, all right? Okay, you can see the 30-minute chart. Even as he came in yesterday, the yield started rallying. We had a little bit of a slump this morning, but we've worked our way higher here, okay? And, you might say that he doesn't want to be in hock to the bond markets, but, he can't be stupid enough to just basically ignore them. A lot of this, I think, is that there's not been much in the way of policy, but he's already come out about how he's gonna basically cure homelessness, okay, stop people sleeping rough, okay. He's reduced VAT on electricity bills. It's all lovely, nice vibes, all right, but there's no real detail on on truly how it's going to be funded. And that's why markets are saying, well, if you're going to come out with all these things without sort of telling us how you're going to do it, well, then we're going to increase the cost of borrowing. So it's not an absolute magic shot, but the thing is, at some point it does become an issue, and so I'll be clear and interested to see how long it takes Healy to get his feet under the table. I know he worked in the Treasury before, that was 20 years ago. And remember, he worked in Gordon Brown's Treasury. Gordon Brown's Treasury was what basically, screwed us up, and kind of ran us into the GFC, okay, and then his protege, Mr. Darling, took over. But also it was, filled with basically paying for everything with the much vaunted kind of what do they call them? Those kind of government private, PPI or PFI, okay, which actually have turned out to be utterly shocking deals. Okay, so I think we're paying 250 billion for assets that are worth about 70 billion. All right. And that is just the economics. And that's what we've got to think about. Is Healy going to go down the same route to try and pay for this defense spending? Okay. Is it all going to be on PFIs, on the never never, but basically screws over your grandkids and great grandkids? But anyway, that's the way we're going in that direction. Let's have a little look at sterling. I had a good morning this morning in terms of yesterday and today, actually, intraday trading. These are all on the data. Let's just maneuver this a bit so we can get a bit of an idea of what's going on. So, boom, okay. So what we had here, this is my sterling profile, pound against dollar, pound against yen, euro sterling, pound Swiss, pound Aussie, pound Kiwi, pound Canadian dollar, and the FTSE, all right? So this big day last week, okay, that was Wednesday, all right. So it wasn't a case of people getting excited because we lost the football match to Argentina, all right. But what it was a lot about was invariably, there we go. It is that actually the rumor came out, or the news was brief, that Miliband would not be the chancellor. Imagine being so shit at your job and so kind of loath that your own nation's currency rises rapidly, all right, in the space, raises what that on the cable, what was that, about 160 pips in the space of a short amount of time on the news that you will not be chancellor. Okay, the thing is, Miliband he's so disappeared up his own hoop that he probably would take that as a compliment rather than the absolute professional slight that it truly is. But anyway, interestingly, nothing lasted well, because actually what you can see is then, okay, across the board, is that invariably, sterling has weakened since then, all right? Weakened quite considerably in some parts. So, it has been a case of it's be careful what you wish for. So Healy's going to have to do some things to sort of turn this around and basically build confidence in markets that basically will be able to sort of see and help him and push them better into a better particular place. But certainly, you can see for yourself there. Well, Joe, listen, Kiwi. Sterling's been in first place, Kiwi dollar's been in second place, but you can see the kind of trajectory of travel there, can't you? Pound against Aussie has we triple topped there very nicely and have kind of rolled over and fallen away there. Even euro has weakened against, or euro has strengthened against sterling, or maybe it's just sterling weakening. Pound against Swiss franc, okay, has continued to be in an uptrend, but you can even see the last week, okay, it has weakened. Certainly, pound has weakened against the US dollar, and it has even weakened against the Japanese yen. All right, so this is what I'm curious to see here. Pound against Canadian dollar has been a little bit, it's been as messy as it always has been, because basically, we're just trying to identify. We talked about it being a double top. This was the last Wednesday. Miliband's not going to be chancellor, and that was just, maybe that was just like a knee-jerk reaction. And then actually, what's seeing is that Canadian dollar is strengthening, and it's pushing the price beneath the 20. We're getting kind of lower highs, and that is a case of maybe a little bit of sterling weakening and a little bit of Canadian strength off the back of the oil, and whether we see that kind of drift its way down to that. Listen, let's have a little look at FTSE. I know we don't really look at it too often, but I talked for a while that I thought it was coiling up, and we were waiting for a catalyst, and maybe the new government would be. If it is, it's been it's bullish, but I wouldn't exactly say it's terribly exciting. I wouldn't say people are getting overly excited about that. The daily chart, it's holding above its daily 50 there, isn't it? But once again, I wouldn't exactly say that is that is lighting the fires. Okay, and as I said, part of that drift higher is because there's an awful lot of energy companies, okay, who are doing well at the moment, and defense companies who are deemed may do well with Healy's chancellor. But once again, I wouldn't exactly say that that is terribly exciting, okay? I wouldn't exactly. So, what we saw yesterday was, we saw yesterday a sell-off in sterling and a sell-off in FTSE and a rise in yields after Burnham took over, okay? And I'll be intrigued to see if that follows through. Certainly, as I said, we've had that move there a little bit higher. This is the 30-minute chart FTSE. So yesterday you can see what the score was there. Okay, there was the welcome to big school, Mr. Burnham, and then this has just been basically that's as I said, energy and defence. And remember, it is the Farnborough Aviation Air Show. Okay, and I think Mr. Burnham is the first Prime Minister who has never turned he's sort of snubbed going to do the opening presentation, or at least show his face and stuff and what have you. So. But anyway, nonetheless, that's what we've seen, that kind of little bit of a move there. Can it follow through? Certainly, with sterling, I'll be watching to see, this week, as I said, it's going to be an eventful week. There'll be twists and turns, okay, as people make policy announcements, or we find out there are no policies, or alternatively, the policies are shockers. That will have the impact on sterling over the next week. So, be fleet of foot, okay? Make sure you're on top of the news flow. Make sure you're on top of your risk management. Have yourself a fabulous trading week. And I will speak to you soon, everybody. Cheers.